So I want to talk about why I believe activism is a scam. I'm sure you've heard the saying before, sometimes the truth isn't always pretty. And well, I think this may be one of those things. So stay with me for a little while, and I'm going to walk you through my thought process on why I think activism is a scam. So something that I've been thinking about for the past few years and never really talked about. But I feel like it was a good time to bring this up. So firstly, I believe activism is a scam because it tends to target people that are highly emotional and aren't the best at regulating their emotions. People that may call themselves empaths and that they feel the pain and suffering of what's going on in the world. And why there may be nothing wrong with that, and they may be valid in their feelings and emotions. I don't think they realized that in some senses they're being hijacked by a system that is feeding off their unregulated and highly emotional states to potentially push certain agendas or take certain rights away from the people. Also, if you think about it, only within not even the last 100 years have humans been able to know what is going on in other parts of the world through media and the internet. Not even 100 years ago, we did not have access to this information, and we only really knew what was happening within our family, our close friends, and our local communities. And then maybe with the newspaper, what was going on in our country. But even then, still more susceptible for propaganda when you're only getting one news source. So you really only knew what was happening within, a small group of people. So we aren't wired to have all this information, constantly, hitting our nervous system of what's happening in different parts of the world. It's just too much for us to handle. And while terrible things are happening in the world, and we can acknowledge that, a lot of the time, it's not always really affecting us what's happening where we are in the world. So for me personally, it's hard to take on more information than I need. But another thing I find interesting about activism is that these people that are attracted to it, there's an irony in it because they want to save the world, help all these causes going on, but they hardly ever can help themselves. A lot of times their mental and physical health is deteriorating, they're financially unstable, their relationships are falling apart, yet they want to fix all these problems in the world, but they can't fix themselves. I see a lot of irony in that, and as the cliche saying goes, although cliche is very true, if you want to see change in the world, you have to change yourself. I really believe in that. Because even if changes were to happen the way people wanted them to happen, if people are not emotionally ready, meaning they can regulate their emotions and not let events trigger their emotions and become dysregulated. They're self-aware and are obtaining a higher level of consciousness. These changes will backfire because people won't be ready to handle them. And I read this interesting book a few years ago called Nature and the Human Soul by Bill Plotkin. And one of the themes he talks about in this book is the different levels of consciousness that people go through and how a majority of people get stuck kind of at the adolescent stage, the teenager. So there is a huge population of people walking around as adults that still have the mindset of an adolescent. That's why you see adults throwing temper tantrums out in public, losing their cool over things that aren't even that big of a deal. And that's why you see a lot of chaos and division happening in our society because people do not have the actual mature adult mindset and awareness to understand what is happening and kind of filter the nonsense out and approach life with more awareness and understanding. And activism does a great job of capturing these adolescent adults into thinking they are making change because it feels good and is creating a ventilation feedback loop where it allows people to relieve their emotions through protests, yelling and screaming on the streets during these protests, posting whatever thing online that's trending, and just kind of having circular conversations of what they feel is bad happening in the world, but never really making any actual change, just talking about it, but never always taking the action. And I'm not saying there are people that are not taking action, because there are people doing that, but there's a lot of people that get caught in this feedback loop of, I'll go out, I'll make the sign, I'll yell in the street, I'll go back home, nothing happens. I'll go out, I'll make the sign, I'll yell, nothing happens. I'll post a thing online, I did the thing, look at me, I'm good. Virtual signaling, anything to make you feel good, but not actually do anything good. I'm not saying that these people are bad because they have good intentions, they just don't have the awareness to recognize the feedback loop that they're in. I mean, this has been happening forever. I mean, you can look back in the 60s when a lot of these psychological operations were happening. You could go back to the hippie movement where people thought they were doing things, but really they were just getting high on LSD and thinking they were making changes because they felt good and they were having these epiphanies, but no real changes actually happened because the whole ideology was subverted and misdirected to make people think they were doing something, but no change was actually happening. And that's still happening today, and that's why it continues to happen, because on the surface level it may seem good, but nothing for the most part ever changes because it's designed that way. Funny how that works, isn't it? They'll also trick you into thinking you should do something for your safety, and that's never the case. It's to take your rights away. So you have to be careful with what you're engaging and what is the underlying the subcontext of that mission that is being portrayed. Because sometimes it's not what you always think, and you get caught up in the wrong things. Also, activism creates group mind, where you're not actually thinking of yourself. You get in this group and you just start doing everything the group does, and that can create for, some messy situations. There's definitely been a couple psychological studies on this over the years that, they'll, an example, they'll have a group of people in a room looking at this is just kind of made up scenario, but it gets the gist of what, the study's off, like looking at a blue piece of paper, but everyone's saying it's red. And then the one person's like, I don't know, it looks blue, but everyone just keeps saying, the color that it's not, and they trick. And eventually everyone just says it's the color it's not because of the group mind mentality. So, yeah, I mean, activism is a scam because it, to me, is just a form of escapism that feeds off highly emotional, unregulated people that don't take care of themselves and get stuck in feedback loops that just cycle on and on until eventually maybe they realize that nothing's happening. And it's just kind of very hypocritical and ironic that you have people that want this change but haven't made the changes within themselves. So, how is this problem fixed? Well, as I stated before, it's fixed by having people, first start with themselves, making the changes within themselves, making sure they're mentally and physically healthy, financially stable, building healthy relationships with the people around them in their community, building businesses that's will create change in the system, creating arts that expresses a change or an exploration of self-awareness and the expansion of consciousness. By doing these things, you can create a ripple effect of real change. But going out in the street, screaming and yelling, and releasing that rage, and posting online, and being divisive with other people in the name of activism, it's not the way. You got scammed. And it's okay, because if you don't have the awareness, then you just don't know, because it feels good and you have the right intentions. You just need to take a step back and redirect into a new direction. And we got this. So I think that's all I have to say. I feel like there's a lot more that can be said on this topic, but I think I said everything I want to say. And I hope my point was clear and why I think activism is a scam. And please leave a comment with how you, what your thoughts are on this. And us a like and subscribe if you haven't. We'll also post a link to the community Discord that we'll be creating, which will be a space for creatives and designers to join and network with each other. And we'll have monthly discussions. And it's going to be awesome. So hope to see you in there. And hope you have a beautiful rest of your day or night. Until next time.